Okay. Hello, everyone. Hi. Welcome as usual on this Sunday afternoon. I'm Shimoge. Well, I'm Shimoge every day, but I'm live streaming on this channel every Sunday afternoon. Shimoge's Comments America. Welcome. Please like the video as you come on, and also if you're watching this on a playback on whatever platform, please also like it because this video is streaming on YouTube, but it's going to be going out on all platforms. So please like it, share it with people you know as well so that they can join us on the stream or watch the video later. Um, and then as well, please subscribe to the channel or follow on whichever platform you're on, right? Subscribe on YouTube. If it's Facebook or Instagram, please follow. Today I'm going to be doing a commentary reaction because as always, we're in the commentary reaction closet. I do more than just commentary reactions in here. I do literally everything in here because it's the only really quiet spot in my apartment. But nonetheless, the commentary reaction closet. So yeah, I'm gonna be reacting to a video talking about the potential breakup of the United States, which is of course one of the main topics on this channel. But as usual, before I begin, I'm gonna wait a bit to give more people time to get on the stream. So I'm either gonna wait 4 whole minutes or until I get 4 likes. That's 4 whole minutes or until I get 4 likes, whichever comes first. Until then, I'm just gonna chill and play y'all some music as usual. But I'm keep my face up because for those of you who've been watching, you know, usually at this point, I'll kind of you know, cut off my cam. But you know, I'm a pretty beautiful guy. I know you guys want to look at my face, so I'll leave it up. But yeah, the break begins now. See you back in 4 minutes or when I get 4 likes. minutes is up. So I'm just about to begin as usual. If you want to listen to that song on your own time, it's my own song I've made. The link is in the description and in the live chat. But today we're not here to talk about my music. We're here to talk about whether or not America could tear itself apart and react to a video asking and answering that question. So you know my answer to that, of course. You know, that kind of thing is imminent. It's not about a if, it's about a when and how. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so you can see the video as I react to it. So this video is from TLDR News. Never heard of them. TLDR News US, but they have a lot of subscribers, obviously. 242,000. So, you know, people, obviously a lot of people know who they are. But anyway, right, the title of the video is Could America Tell Themselves Apart? U.S. Secession Explained. So I've never seen this video before, but I'm just going to be reacting to it and giving you my thoughts on it. So let's begin. Let's get rid of this ad. Hold up, is it on mute? Okay.
Over Black Friday weekend, we're offering 22% off everything in the TLDR store, from our cute countries with shoes pins, including the US pin badge, to stickers and even our book, Brexit the Colouring Book. Get our biggest discounts of the year using code BLACK.
Hold up. They have a Brexit coloring book? That's fucking hilarious. That's fucking hilarious. I might just buy that for the comedy. That's pretty fucking funny. But anyway.
Black Friday. Hello and welcome to another TLDR Explains video. In this one, we're going to be looking
at if it's called TLDR News US, why do they have a British guy narrating it? I don't, you know, it's a little odd. I guess they talk about America, but I don't know. Just it will get you more in the mood to hear an American accent. I mean, but then again, you know, Americans have enough money. I guess they could just give that British guy some cash. But if you're gonna get a non-American to do it, at least give money to an African, like some random white British dude. Anyway, just one short jingoistic pro-American tangent for me that you'll never hear again because I'm not pro-America. But anyway, let's keep going.
Prospect of American secession, what it means and why it's become more popular, and whether it could even actually happen. So we're doing this video because the idea that America should split up in some form or another has started gaining traction in some corners of the media. Various media outlets have floated the idea, and there were even 2 books written on the subject in 2020, one by left-winger Richard Kreitner and one by right-winger F.H. Buckley. So what's got the media into the idea?
All right, like obviously y'all know me. You know, I've been talking about this for a while. I mean, at least the last 6 months or so on YouTube, but even longer than that, I've been aware of this prospect. That even I'm a little surprised to know that even in 2020 there were 2 relatively prominent books written on it. I mean, yeah, it's just kind of surreal. Just how realistic this prospect is. If you'd asked me this 10 years ago, you know, someone was born and raised in America, if America would ever break up, I would have either told you no or maybe in like a few hundred years. But it could happen tomorrow. Shit is crazy and everyone seems to know it. But yeah.
Idea of American secession. Well, it's probably because the public are so into American secession. In the aftermath of 2 of the most polarizing elections in American history, more and more Americans are flirting with the idea of secession. Polling from UVA's Center for Politics found that an astounding 52% of Trump voters and 41% of Biden voters would favor states seceding from the Union to become their own separate country. That's a scarily high number, but before you get too stressed out or taking the notion of American secession too seriously, note that the question is ambiguous. It could mean one of two things. It could either refer to the idea.
Let's go back and look at the question. Okay, the question: the situation in America is such that I would favor in brackets blue/red states seceding from the Union to form their own separate country. The situation in America is such that I would favor blue or red states. Is that blue and or red states seceding from the Union to form their own country? I don't know if it's that ambiguous in terms of secession. It's ambiguous about who exactly you'd want to secede. Like, I'm not sure who it's asking if we want to secede. Like, is it asking, do we want the blue states to secede or do we want the red states to secede? And then, of course, it doesn't even take into account the idea that, people don't necessarily think the secession should be on strictly party lines. It might just be more regional, which is a little different. But I mean, clearly that question makes it clear. You're asking it that it's asking whether or not, the person answering it thinks someone should secede from the US. So if that many people answered yes to that, I think it's clear that they're in favor of some sort of breakup. Let's go on.
US. It could mean one of two things. It could either refer to the idea of a state, say Hawaii, leaving the US and becoming its own mini country, or it could be referring to the idea of the US splitting up into two similar-sized countries, presumably one composed of Democrat blue states and one composed of Republican red states. These are two very different ideas, and we're going to address both.
Okay, I don't know. Again, I haven't read I haven't taken the poll they're referencing, but based upon the poll question they put up, I don't know if that's a reasonable interpretation. At least the first one, right? Because I don't know if it's asking about one state seceding. That's not what that sounded like to me. Then also, it's interesting to note that on the example of one state, they use Hawaii because that's going to be the least polarizing option, just because it's very unlikely that Hawaii by itself would secede. Even though in recent years, native Hawaiians have been, kind of fighting to gain, I guess, fighting against discrimination. I don't know if they've been fighting for like political independence, but they've been fighting against discrimination. Some of them have been asking people not to come toward the island anymore or come as tourists to vacation because they think the tourist economy is exploitative, which isn't totally wrong. But, I haven't really heard much talk of Hawaii going on to become its own country, right? And certainly it doesn't seem realistic at that moment. A lot would have to happen for that to happen. I think more realistic secession prospects would be large portions of the continental US seceding. So say New England, really, since New England runs the US, that's not seceding so much as just giving up on the thing, right? But then like the West Coast, maybe like California seceding, Texas on its own. That's one state by itself that could secede, but that's because it's huge. And Texas, of course, has its own peculiar history, was its own country for a little bit. Maybe the entire South secedes, the entire Midwest, that kind of thing. So it's interesting that they didn't engage with the most, at least in this example, the most realistic and therefore controversial potential secessions. So anyway, let's go on.
Both in this video. Let's start with the idea of a single state leaving the US. Legally, this would probably require a constitutional amendment with the support of 2/3 of the US House and Senate, as well as 38 state legislatures.
It's hilarious they're talking about the legality of secession. If you're trying to leave a country, you don't give a fuck about that country's laws. You just do it. You just do it and then demand that people fight you if they want to stop you. It's not, oh, we need a constitution. Yeah. No, I think it's a little absurd to think that people trying to secede would wait for a constitutional amendment. That, that's kind of crazy. But again, I don't know who's backing TLDR news. But the fact that they're even kind of entertaining that idea maybe makes me think that, I mean, like most very popular media outlets, they're kind of controlled by their Puritans or their allies, and because of that, they still want to, at least implicitly big up U.S. law. Like, oh, if you want to leave the U.S., you better do it legally. Well, that's like telling someone if you want to steal, you better do it legally. Like, not that seceding is as bad morally as stealing, but it's like you're already outside of the law at that point. So I don't know. It's kind of absurd, but whatever.
This is, well, pretty much impossible, but there are nonetheless some state-specific secession movements, most notably in California and Texas.
This is my $200 million YouTube ad strategy PDF, where I cover my entire...
Yes, California, or Calexit, is a movement that supports the idea that California should leave America and form its own government. And to be fair, California has the resources to go it alone. California, just by itself, is the 5th largest economy in the world in terms of nominal GDP, ahead of Great Britain, France, and even India. It has a high GDP per capita of about $65,160, according to 2019 estimates, which puts it ahead of the US average of about $63,000. Its major cities, such as San Francisco and Los Angeles, are globally recognized, and California is home of major tech companies such as Apple, Google, and Facebook. So,
pause. I paused. I don't know why I said pause. I'm not a 13-year-old on the playground. But anyway, most of what they're saying here is true. I mean, all of what they're saying here is factual. And side note, with California, from what I know, a lot of Puritans moved to California. So those might be the people driving that secession movement. I guess Puritans who, don't necessarily want to remain in the same country as their brothers and sisters who still live in New England. Even though they're politically allied with them, they might just not think the whole, U.S. thing is working out. But I need to look more deeply into that. But another thing I want to add is, though, with all of those tech companies talking about, what he didn't mention there is that those tech companies are heavily allied and really, at least in some of those cases, were actually founded. Like, for example, Google was founded by the U.S. military. So because of that, if the U.S. were to secede, those companies could, or if the U.S. were to break up, rather, those companies could struggle and potentially go under. And then that would affect California's economy. Like, maybe that wouldn't happen. Maybe they continue in some other form. And of course, California has some other resources. And, of course, like the rest of the U.S., the bulk of their money comes from stealing from other people. Because that's the other variable. If the U.S. breaks up, right? How are they going to continue U.S. imperialism, if at all? Because that's how they get their money, right? Because all of a sudden, the military couldn't go on in the same form it's in now. You wouldn't be able to recruit as many soldiers for the military, and then there would be a question as to who inherits the weapons, things of that nature. So that would be messy, and if that is not handled in such a way that the states that arise from the ashes of the U.S. are able to exercise military power, and they could really suffer economically because they're not going to have a means of stealing from other people. So those are variables there, as I mentioned. But let's go on.
What do the residents of California think? Well, support for Calexit reached an all-time high of 32% in 2017 after the inauguration of Donald Trump, who isn't the most popular politician in the Golden State. But according to the latest polling from 2018, it has since fallen to just 14% support, with 73% opposing. Texas is sort of California's red state equivalent when it comes to secession. Texas has been gaining a lot of political clout over the last couple of decades. It has large amounts of external immigration, mainly due to its proximity to the southern border, as well as internal immigration of Americans looking for a more pro-business, low-tax state government. Today, Dallas and Houston are some of America's biggest cities, housing the headquarters of major companies such as Dell, ExxonMobil, and AT&T, with Tesla moving to Texas sometime in the near future as well. Texans are more pro-independence than Californians. Polling from Public Policy in 2016 found that 26% of Texans support secession, with that number rising to 40% if Hillary Clinton won the presidential election that year, which, as we all know, didn't happen. Nonetheless, after Biden's election in 2020, Texas Republican Party Chairman Alan West proposed that Texas and other like-minded states should leave the United States and form their own nation. And there was even a bill proposed in the Texas legislature that would have held a non-binding vote as to whether Texas should leave America, but it failed to pass the committee stage. In addition to California and Texas, there are some
Okay, so just pause there to talk about Texas. Obviously, like he said, it's kind of the red state inverse of California. I think the main difference with Texas, though, because everything else I said about California really applies to Texas. How, like the rest of the U.S., they are dependent on stealing other people's stuff. So if the U.S. breaks up and the U.S. military, also kind of breaks up, they might not be able to maintain that. And then their economy could suffer. And then a lot of their businesses are directly or indirectly tied to the U.S. military. In a sense, all U.S. businesses are indirectly tied to the U.S. military because you benefit from the imperialism and the theft. But, as far as direct ties, not all of them are. But like tech companies, like the ones you mentioned, Dell, certainly are, right? So that could hurt Texas. But the main difference with Texas is since they're not Puritans, right, or Puritan allies, the degree to which or the percentage of Texans who want to secede from the U.S. is higher, just because the U.S. is a Puritan ethno state. So if you're not a Puritan, it doesn't benefit you. And if you're not a Puritan ally, you're less likely to well, if you're not a Puritan ally, you're not going to follow their agenda, which is to keep the U.S. intact. So that is what it is. But
less well-known independent movements. The Cascadia movement seeks to unify the Pacific Northwestern states of Oregon, Washington, and the Canadian province of British Columbia together as one nation. States outside the continental US, such as Hawaii and Alaska, have flirted with independence in the past. Alaska even elected a pro-independence governor, but these campaigns haven't really got off the ground. The long and short of it is that while independent states might occasionally flirt with independence, these are usually reactions to controversial political events, and support rarely holds. And even if it did, the appropriate constitutional amendment is unlikely to get through. One last thing to note is that
that constitutional amendment talk is ridiculous. I'm sorry. Yeah.
If, for example, Texas decided to leave because it thought the rest of the US was becoming too liberal or Democrat, this would end up being self-defeating. Texas leaving would mean 40 fewer electoral votes for Republicans. In 2020, Trump could have won Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, but without Texas, he still wouldn't have won.
What? Were they drunk when they made this? What the hell is this? What? You think if Texas seceded, they would give a fuck about electoral votes? If you secede from a country, you are no longer part of that country. So, like, why would you be that invested in their internal politics? Like, I don't know. This is asinine to me. Like, because if Texas were to secede from the Union, that would be because they thought that their political faction, the Republicans, was not powerful enough anyway to get what they wanted. So then at that point, they're like, all right, F it, we're better off outside. So then why would they then go, oh, let's stay in the Union to give the Republicans a better chance of winning? Like, that just doesn't make any sense. They must have been drunk when they made this, or this is just a very weird attempt at propaganda. I mean, I guess, a lot of people don't sleep enough, and a lot of people drink too much. Maybe they could get taken in by this, but wow, that's incredibly stupid. This is like an F-. If I were a teacher and someone submitted this video to me as a part of a project, I would give this section about like Texas secession and all that an F-. I might even give the whole video an F-, just because this is so dumb. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. Wow. Okay, let's keep going.
In other words, Texas leaving would hand the US to Democrats. Equally, California leaving would hand it to the Republicans. Anyway, what about the idea of the US splitting up into red America and a blue America?
Live streaming can be tricky, and sometimes trying to find the right software to make your streams look really professional can be a real chore. The thing I like about...
Well, we're not going to stay on this topic for very long because, well, it's not going to happen. The first thing to say is that there probably isn't a legal way of doing this. If getting one state to secede legally is difficult, getting half the country to do so is nearly impossible. Second, for all the talk of red and blue states, America is probably more politically mixed than you think. All states are ultimately a bit purple. There's an amazing stat which really illustrates how mixed America is. Most people who voted for Donald Trump in 2020 actually lived in blue states. Yep, so even if all the so-called red states left, they'd end up taking less than 50% of all Trump voters. You get the point. While it might occasionally feel like it, America isn't divided in the same way as it was in the 1860s, so there's no easy way for it to split. Finally, this would be the world's messiest...
Okay, like, all right, clearly this whole thing is just a propaganda job made to just make people think secession is not going to happen, despite the obvious facts. Like, woo, where do I even begin? They're just talking nonsense. I think the first thing about the US being politically mixed, I'll just address that. Like, yes, it is politically mixed. However, if, say, all the red states were to secede, then it's most likely that most of the people who voted red that lived in blue states would simply just move to the red states. We're already kind of seeing that happen internally, right? A lot of people are moving to regions of the country they're more politically aligned with. So if they seceded, that would just happen. So that's not a big obstacle to secession. Then also on the point of the 1860s, because obviously he's talking about the U.S. Civil War, the U.S. was politically mixed back then too, because what they don't often tell you is that in the North, there were a large minority of people who supported the South, and in the South, there were a large minority of people who supported the North. And even a good portion of the people who ultimately supported the South, that lived in the South, were kind of ambivalent about secession, right? And they only did it in the end just because they didn't want to fight, you know, their fellow brothers and sisters who lived in the South, and of course were of the same, generally speaking, of the same tribal background as them. And the same was true in the North. There were a lot of people in the North who were ambivalent about opposing the South, but in the end of the day, they just did it out of group solidarity. So the U.S. has always been politically mixed, but then, of course, that didn't prevent secession back. What was that, like 160 years ago? And it wouldn't prevent it now, right? So that doesn't make sense. But then also this talk of legality. Oh, they couldn't legally secede. What? This is a topic of war. Who the fuck cares about the law? That's just not how people operate. Like, you think people want to secede from a country? What? If people decide to secede from a country, they're just gonna go. You could have a philosophical discussion about whether or not that's right or wrong, but that's completely different from talking about whether or not it's going to happen. So, look, this thing is just a propaganda, left-wing, Puritan political hit job. I mean, man, they really think people are stupid. To be fair, some people are, but most people, I don't know if they're stupid enough to get taken in by this. This is, I mean, geez, even if you want to keep the U.S. together, like, you could do that while being honest about the facts of what's going on. But I don't know, the Puritans, just white people in general, but especially the Puritans, just habitual liars, just always lying, always deceiving, could never tell the truth. Like, man, that's irritating. Like, that's whew. I mean, I'm sorry, guys. Just stunning how stupid this is. That shit is crazy. Whew. Damn, you stupid. This is like 9 + 10 = 21 stupid. Damn. Wow. But I think they're doing it on purpose to deceive people. But anyway, let's finish out this nonsense.
Divorce. Splitting up is always difficult, but especially so when the US federal government, the most powerful organization on earth with over 1 million employees, a massive nuclear arsenal, and the world's most powerful military, is on the table. So, all in all, secession of any kind is neither likely to happen anytime soon, nor a good idea. Nonetheless, the fact that secession has become even a topic of conversation is a symptom of the fact that Americans do feel increasingly divided. And, well, in some sense they are. Democrats and Republicans have never thought less of one another. So even if secession isn't itself a real problem, it's a symptom of one. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video and if you want us to do a video on political polarization in the United States, let us know in the comments below. Like I said at the start, if you use code Black Friday in our store this weekend, you'll get 22% off everything you order. You heard me, 22%. You can even get 2 signed copies of our book, Brexit the Colouring Book, for just $14.99 if you use the link below. Anyway, treat yourself and your TLDR loving friends by heading to the store, and by doing so, supporting our work. Thanks. And as always, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers for making videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that is in the description below.
Wow, what was that bullshit?
YouTube ads
beat. All right, and it's a 4-minute ad. Lord have mercy. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Okay, wow. So y'all know what I thought of that. That was a stupid piece of shit. You know, there were some facts in there, but they threw in a lot of just falsehoods and just logical failures. But again, I think that was on purpose. It's a political hit job, propaganda, all that. But yeah, just to summarize my thoughts on the video, I think it, you know, it vastly oversimplified the potential ways in which the breakup of the U.S. could happen, and also just put way too much emphasis on the role U.S. law could play in this, because that's not relevant. And then at the end there, they threw in that bit about, oh, you know, the U.S. government is so powerful, this would be a bad idea. So obviously, you know, they're just there to try and prevent secession. As I've said before, my position on secession is that it should happen in the U.S. because the U.S. as a country is just too big. Like the vast majority of countries on earth today are just too big. But it's just that it has to be broken up into a series of city states instead of just large regions, because those would still be too big and that would facilitate a lot of violence. And then it has to be done peacefully, instead of being done through civil war. That's my position. So I don't really agree with the implicit agenda of that video. But then, of course, you know, some of the nonsense they're trying to pass off as facts in there, that is stunning. But yeah, anyway, those are my thoughts on it. Quicker live stream today. Coming up on 40 minutes, not too long. You don't always have to live here. I know I have things to do off the internet. You have things to do off the internet as well. So if there are no questions, and I don't see any, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and end the stream. So again, thank you to everyone who's joined me today, and thank you to everyone who's gonna watch this back as a replay in the future. As usual, please like the video, share it with people you know, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you're watching this on a platform other than YouTube, follow or subscribe my account there as well. Please also click the link in the description to donate, because your support helps a lot, helps me keep doing this. And just remember, I do this live stream every week, Sunday at 4 p.m. And yeah, that's it. So thank you all, and see you next week. Bye.